Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pastor Bruce. Welcome to amvoice.net. One man's voice rolled into one man's sermon, okay? Or my Sunday sermon. Because I want you to understand 2017 was a particularly gruesome year. And it was gruesome because we had a political party out there that says we're not going to do anything that the sitting president wants us to do. They're going to fight everything. Now, for you DACA people, and for those of you who believe in DACA, as I do, we have people in the military. We have them in college. We have them in businesses. They should be given citizenship, plain and simple. But under the DACA rules under Obama, a Democratic Congress could not come together and create a law to protect the Dreamers. So President Obama wrote an executive order to do that, and in doing that, gave Congress 6 months to create a law. President Trump moved in because there was no law created, and he put the blame back onto Congress. You have a choice, and that choice is this: create a DACA law, or I will use executive power once again. Now, executive powers don't mean anything. Because as we see, President Trump comes in and wipes away all of the executive powers that Obama put into place because they were useless and ridiculous. You need to have laws to protect those in the country. We have laws on immigration to stop people coming into this country illegally without using the proper procedures. And yet, the Democratic Party says, let's throw those laws out the window. Let anybody and their brother come. Why? Because the UN agenda for 2030 says that we're going to have open borders. And you can pass between border to border or country to country. In doing that and opening the borders, we have to take a look at California and look at the filth that is in the streets because homeless, illegal aliens, because it's a sanctuary state, have taken up residency on the sidewalks. They urinate and defecate in the streets. They don't use the porta potties that they're put out there for them. They don't have jobs, so they're out there asking for handouts to take care of themselves. This is what open borders means in a country that doesn't have enough jobs for its own people. And this is what happens. The scum of a foreign country comes into this country. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said the scum. The useless, because if they weren't useless, they'd be working in their home country. They'd be doing something to make their life better in their home country. But they can't, they won't, so they come here and they can't get ahead, so they live in our streets in California. One of the most beautiful states, or the most beautiful state, because I've been out there for years, is being turned into nothing more than a large scum bucket of derelicts, illegals, druggies that are making the streets out there very unsafe. Very good, Governor Brown. You did it. You made California nothing more than a third-class country. And I hope you're proud of yourself. You can't take care of the citizens in your own state, but yet you will run over to China. Excuse me. You'll run over to China and you'll tell China you'll work with them to create better air quality. And don't care about your own people. The taxes that you charge people, the fuel. You have refineries in California, yet California has some of the highest taxes or highest gas prices in the country. Why? Because that's socialism, people. That is socialism. You want a car? Fine, have a car, but you're going to pay outrageous prices for gas. And what good does it do? Have you actually seen rush hour in California? 6-lane highways, nothing more than than parking lots during rush hour. I used to work off of El Segundo Boulevard, and I went down to Long Beach. It took me an hour, and it's not that far away. Just if I took the highway, the 405, I wouldn't get there in less than an hour if I left at the wrong time. Because, like I said, it's nothing more than a parking lot. So we have governors, and then there's the mayors, like de Blasio, who openly admits he's a socialist. He attacks our policemen. He should never have been elected into office. He's also sitting there saying that we're going to be a sanctuary city and we don't care what the president has to say. Well, I have something to say on that. You see, each state is its own government. The federal government comes together. Their job is to write rules and regulations that govern all of the states equally. That's their job. And so if New York wants to be sanctuary, let them be sanctuary. If California wants to be sanctuary, let them be sanctuary. If that's what they want, if that idiot up there in Chicago wants to be sanctuary, let them be sanctuary. That's fine. That's what it is. That's their choice as states and cities. If the governor of Illinois says, no, you can't be, then they have to obey the government of Illinois. So what happens? Well, if you're not going to go along with the overall picture of unity with this country, we're going to have to do something about that. First and foremost, shut off the funding. Plain and simple. It's all about money. And don't you hear him crying when President Trump said we're not going to give you your federal money? Well, it was passed under Obama. We're entitled to it. We have to have it, screaming and hollering. If they're so good, they should just turn around and say, fine, don't worry about it. We don't need your money. I recommend, since California has been talking about becoming its own country, I recommend that we allow California to leave the Union. Let them create their own country. Let us build a Western Wall to keep people from California from coming into the rest of the country. Shut them off like they should be done. You either comply with the federal rules or you lose. Plain and simple. And we'll see what happens in 2018. I hope President Trump stands by his words and denies these cities and states funding if they're not going to support ICE, if they're not going to support this country. Now, part of the things about sanctuary cities, it's in the Bible too, people. There were sanctuary cities back then. When somebody killed somebody by accident or just a mishap and somebody died because of the ignorance of the person, they could run off to a sanctuary city and be protected until a decision could be made as to what to do with them. And most of the time, that decision was left up to the family members who suffered the loss. There's stories about how back then that when somebody killed another person for whatever reason, one of the punishments was to tie their hands, the dead person's hands, and put that individual on his back, the one who killed him. And he had to walk around for whatever time period they said with that dead body on his back. And because of that, they learned a little bit more respect for human life. Carrying a dead-weighted body, you take a man that's 200, 250 pounds, 230 pounds, whatever, and you tie him to your back, that's a lot of weight to carry around. Maybe next time you won't kill somebody. That is the thought. And if you look at the Jewish community, there's not too many Jews who are killing Jews out there, is there? No. Iranians are killing Iranians. Iraqis are killing Iraqis. Saudi Arabia has pretty much come along the lines where they don't kill each other like they used to. And England, France, Germany, they're all killing their own. But the Jews aren't. And the Jews learned a lesson years ago. When you learn to live in peace and in harmony, when you learn to accept the rules, whether you like it or not, and one of the greatest things that we can boast about in this country, ladies and gentlemen, is that if we don't like our government, we can replace it every 4 years. That's right. We boast about that. But under socialism, once they're in control, you can't get rid of them. You really can't. And that's the Democratic Party. We can't get rid of the Democratic Party. And they are obstructing everything that President Trump, is trying to do. Why? Because they're spoiled little kids who want to have their socialist government. And America's saying no. They're saying no. Do you understand that Democrats voted for President Trump because they knew they didn't want Hillary Clinton in office? And let's talk about Hillary Clinton. I put up a couple of individual blogs about her. But Hillary Clinton, they're saying, is the most successful woman in the world. She's not. She's the most privileged woman in the world. And why is she privileged? Well, because she was the wife of the President of the United States, who, under his leadership of this country, helped the country grow. But at the same time, there were more controversies going on about that couple and what they were doing. The law firm that she was associated with, there was questionings about her billing techniques. And for a year, they could not find the bills that she had posted to her clients. And yet one day, out of the blue, they just showed up on the secretary's desk out in front of her office. Oh, where did these come from? You know what happened? They were scrubbed. They were made to look legit. And then they turned them over. But, we have a governor, McAuliffe, I think in Virginia, who worked for the Clintons, who, without a security clearance, I believe, would pick up documents and dossiers on prominent Republicans in the country and bring them over to the Clintons. The Clintons were trying to build a war chest and saying, we have all of this information on you, go along with what we're doing. And McAuliffe had to leave, but because he was a loyal Clinton supporter, they gave him Virginia. You see what happens. If you go with them, you succeed. If you go against them, well, there's a line of bodies running around here that we don't know how they died. They're coming up with excuses. But again, we're talking about Hillary. Hillary was the wife of the president, so she thought she was entitled to whatever she wanted. And so instead of moving back to Arkansas, where they already knew her and didn't like her, she moved to New York, where the Democrats were in power and could get her elected into the Senate to help her bid for the presidency of the United States. So the Democratic Party caved in, allowed her to run for the Senate seat. She won. She sat in there for 8 years and did nothing for the New York people, except after 9/11, when she helped Southern New York, and her job was to help Southern New York with the 9/11 tragedy. After that, I'm running for president of the United States. Well, okay. Stupid Democratic Party put up a black candidate. And in putting up a black candidate, Hillary, who hates blacks, and if you go back and study it and listen to what she has to say, she hates black people. She's a Democrat from the South. They believe in slavery, remember? She hates them, but she's giving in because, hey, you're supporting the Democratic Party, you're going to get me elected. And so she tolerates the black people in this country. And so, therefore, she won the Senate and did nothing. But now we're running for president against a black man. There was even a comment that suggested maybe it was time to assassinate the black candidate. Think about that. You see, you millennials don't know that. If you go back and study history and listen to the newsreels about what was going on in that campaign, you'll see that comment was made. Something to the effect that maybe it's time someone took out the black candidate. After that, shortly after that, Hillary Clinton resigned from running for the presidency and gave it over to Obama. See, she hates black people. And she lost to a black man. She lost to a black man. The country, even the women in this country, were looking to elect a black man into office. Well, Hillary didn't even have the woman vote. So she resigned with not because of her intelligence and her capabilities, with her privilege was given the Secretary of State. In which, during as she was the Secretary of State, she created the Clinton Foundation, or her and her husband. And millions upon millions of dollars were invested into the Clinton Foundation, which was being funneled into her campaign. We also know that she took control. She gave the Democratic National Committee $20 million to keep them on their feet because they were going bankrupt, because they wildly spend the money that's given to them. They turned around and said, okay, you can control us. We know this. It's history. It's out there if you open your ears and listen. And so she was in control of the Democratic National Committee a year before she was running for presidency. And so in doing that, she also said, I'm going to run for the President of the United States. And she was doing good because there was a lot of people that wanted to vote for her. But look out. Here comes Bernie Sanders. You know one of the comments she made about Bernie Sanders? Well, he's not really a Democrat. He's a socialist. He's not really a Democrat. And so they manipulated the votes in the Democratic Party towards Hillary. And during that time, he sat there and said, this is rigged. He knew it was rigged against him. And yet, he continued to go and fight, and nobody listened to him. But there were a lot of supporters from Bernie Sanders. And so she won. She didn't win. She was given the nomination for president from the Democratic Party. Why? Because she's a spoiled little girl who wanted her own way. She manipulated and controlled the DNC. She manipulated the race against Bernie Sanders so that she could be the nominee. Listen, if she didn't interfere like she did, Bernie Sanders would have been the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. If you look at all that was going on, you'll see that that's the truth. And so they forced him out because they manipulated everything around him. Okay, fine. You see, she couldn't win against Obama because even though she had the money, she had the power, she couldn't win because the popular vote of the American people were, even the Republicans were going for a black president. And she couldn't win against Bernie Sanders, so she had to manipulate because she couldn't sit there and drop out again. She's getting too old. So, therefore, she lost her credibility right there with the Democratic Party. And once she manipulated and controlled the Bernie Sanders bid for presidency, and he lost, she thought she was going to get the Bernie Sanders people. But the Bernie Sanders people knew what she was about, knew what she didn't want to do. They knew she cheated him out of his bid for the presidency. And so she lost not only her credibility, but she lost the Bernie Sanders voters who went over to Donald Trump because they sort of had the same message. She lost Democrat votes. And because of that, even though there was the majority of the people voted as a populace, the majority of the country voted Republican. And that's why we have the Electoral College, to give everybody a voice. Otherwise, and look at it. Go back and look at the numbers. Look at how many votes. Let's cut New York in half and let's cut California in half. And she lost. She lost. When I say that, the Democratic votes. She lost the election. And she should have lost the election because she is not a deserving candidate. She's a spoiled little girl who, because she was the president's wife and because she was shamed by her husband's sexual exploitations, she felt that she was deserving of the Senate. She felt she was deserving of the Secretary of State. She felt that she was deserving of the presidency. That's what she felt. That's what spoiled little girls feel. It's mine. You can't have it. And because it was taken away from her, the presidency, for almost a full year, she was out there telling people what happened. And it was all everybody else's problem but her own. This is the flaw of the social democrats who are in this country. And the ignorant, the stupid, the welfare recipients, both black and white, who will be given money to go out and protest on behalf of Hillary Clinton. They don't know any better. They don't know the corruption. Now, in January 2017, the last, I think it was 12 employees of the Clinton Foundation had like 3 months left on their contract, and then they closed the doors to the Hillary Clinton. Why? Because foreign countries stopped giving the Clintons money, stopped paying to play. You want to talk about corruption in this world? You look at the Democratic Party. And for all of you senior Democrats, the elderly ones, my age and older, who've been around during the Kennedy administration, who understood that under Kennedy, the GDP growth was 5%. He was doing more for this country as a Democratic leader than anyone's done ever since. And they assassinated him because he wouldn't go along with the liberal agenda. So who killed him? Johnson? CIA? We don't know. We just know that after his assassination, the Democratic Party started to go downhill. And if you open your eyes and look and see the truth, you'll understand that. That's why our country's so great, people. Greater than any other. Once you get into an office in another country, you're there for life if you want it. That's what our senators, our House of Representatives, and that has to change. But we still have a system in place that is better than any other system. Every 4 years, you get a chance to change your political leaders if you don't like them. And we don't have a dictatorship from the presidency because all he can do is spend 8 years in there, and he needs Congress approval to do everything. Well, except for Obama, where he started writing executive order after executive order because even the Democrats would not support him. Why wouldn't they support him? Because he's black and the Democrats hate black people. Wake up and smell the roses. So we see a lot that went on in 2017. The Hillary Clinton campaign, our stock market going up. Remember under Obama? And again, Bush. Bush is another world. He may be a Republican, but he believes in one world order. He's part of, as we were talking about his father, when his father was running for the presidency of the United States against Perot and Clinton. One of my fellow men said, well, it doesn't matter who gets elected. They're all members of the Trilateral Commission. And the Trilateral Commission wants a one world government. They want open borders. And that's what their agenda was. That's what the Bush agenda was. That's why he didn't push for a wall, even though it was written that he could have a wall. And so he went on thinking that he could live like a Republican and be a Democrat at the same time. One of the things I liked about having Bush Jr. in office was he wasn't a lawyer. He was a businessman. But he was an incompetent businessman because he listened to the Trilateral Commission instead of doing what's best for the American people. And so Bushes really hurt this country as well. And Senior Bush, again, you millennials, go back and study this in history. Senior Bush said, read my lips, no new taxes. And after he was elected into office, one of the first things he did was raise taxes, just like the Democrats would have done. And therefore, he lost his credibility. I have to laugh because I know when Reagan was shot, people were up in arms. Oh my God. Oh my God. We're going to have to put Bush in office. Oh, we can't have that. We don't want that. They were praying that Reagan would pull through so Bush wouldn't become the president of the United States. And yet, several years later, he became the president of the United States. Then under Clinton, you had Al Gore. Clinton was being impeached, and the Democrats said, no, we can't have that. We can't have that. Because if he gets impeached, we're going to have Al Gore. We don't want Al Gore. And so he didn't get it. He got impeached. Okay, he was found guilty of a felony, and he lost his ability to practice law. And he created a conflict in our federal government like you wouldn't believe. And after he left, Al Gore ran for president of the United States. It was close. It was close. But that's when Bush Jr. won the election. Didn't matter. Okay. Didn't matter. They were both globalists. They all want one world government. They all want open borders. They all want a military. And it's a sad part when you look back and study history and what's been going on. That is why our country's so great. Again, I say it. Because we can get rid of our elected officials every 4 years. Put the Democrats in full charge of our government. They will rewrite the Constitution. They'll have a constitutional Congress, rewrite it, and put it out that the party that's in charge will remain in charge. That's what they want. Social Democrats running a socialist government inside, answering to the 2030 agenda of the UN as a one world government, as a socialist government. These are all facts and stories that are out there for you people. God knows it. That's why God gave us the ability to make changes. Gave us the ability to have ears and eyes to listen and see what's going on around us. Stop saying, I don't have time. Everybody has time. You're listening to people in the news media who focus on certain things. Now, with the news media of late, again, we want a socialist government here. So what's the mainstream media going to do? They're going to support the party that's going to support socialism. That's the Democrats. And everything that is good for the American people, they are against. I want you to look back at 2017 and understand this. The Democrats did nothing to help the American people. Absolutely nothing. They refused. Why did they refuse to help the American people? Because if they helped the American people, if they helped the economy, if they closed down the borders and gave jobs back to the American people, America would grow healthy and well as a democratic republic with a capitalist system, and they would never give that up for socialism and a one world government under the UN. And Donald Trump made a couple of good decisions, which the Democrats hate. Please understand that. The Democrats hated some of the decisions. The Paris Peace Accords, the Democrats and the news media were up in arms about it. He pulled out, said, no, we're not giving our money to the Paris Peace Accords. To change air quality by 0.5%? And that was like $30 billion a year over the next 10 years. So once we pulled out, what happened with the Paris Peace Accords? What are the other countries doing to better their air quality? Absolutely nothing. Why? Because they weren't going to begin with. All they wanted was money, a handout from the federal government of America. They're rich. They can afford to pay us so we can live in luxury and let our people suffer. That's what socialism is all about. And then when he came out and said, we're moving our embassy to Israel and acknowledging Israel, the UN voted against America. And they were told if they vote against what we want, they're going to suffer. And what have we done? We've reduced the amount of money that we're going to pay into the UN. So billions upon billions of dollars are being saved with two decisions. Two decisions. That money should go back not to pay off the debt, or the deficit, but to pay off the debt. Get that, pay down the principal of what we owe and get us back in line. That's why we don't want more lawyers in Congress, because lawyers don't know how to pay anything down. All they know how to do is take, and spend. Why do you think we're at $20 trillion? Because that's what lawyers do. Take money and spend it, and then say, well, it's the American people's fault because look at how much money we have to hand out for social programs. Well, if you didn't allow the social programs, you wouldn't have to pay that money out. Welfare, wouldn't have to pay it out. Tell people to go back to work. But you can't tell people to go back to work when you pass NAFTA and send our companies overseas, leaving our people to struggle and try to figure out how to survive. And then with the Frank's decision with housing, Senator Frank, a Democrat, said every American is entitled to own their own home. Excuse me. Which is true. You are entitled to own your own home if you can afford it. So they created this no money down, armed, low interest loans for people to buy homes. And people did buy homes. But then at the end of the time period, the interest rate changed from like 4% to 8%, and they couldn't afford to make the payments anymore. They weren't making the money to begin with. So they had to sell their homes. And because the market is being flooded with homes, home prices went down. And people couldn't get what they put into it. So they left their homes. And we had the recession of 2008. Recession. It's really a depression. These are the problems with our country. These are the problems we can overcome if we turn our eyes and look towards the teachings of Jesus Christ. Not about his life, not about his death and his resurrection, but about his life. What did he do out there? Now, what a lot of Christians will not acknowledge is Joseph died shortly after Jesus turned 13. In Jewish tradition, 13, you become a man. And when Joseph died, Jesus took over the family business. Some people will tell you he wasn't a carpenter. He was. He learned the family trade. And his job after Joseph died was to take care of his siblings. Yes, Catholics, Mary had other children. And I will ask every man in this country the one question. Would you marry a woman who's having someone else's baby and then be denied sexual relationships with that woman for 13 years until you die? Would you put up with that? The answer to that question is no. No man in this country. And I don't care if she gave birth to Jesus Christ. After that, she was a woman, he was a man. Plain and simple. Stop distorting the facts of history. They had children together. And Jesus became a brother-father. Brother to his family, the siblings, half-siblings, and he took on the role of the father to provide for them. And after that, he went out and he learned about the world. Jesus was very smart, very smart. We know that. But he didn't know how other people thought. He couldn't get into that. So he went around the area as a tutor, teaching a little boy that came from India with his father when his father was doing business in the different countries. And he talked to people. He listened to their philosophies. He listened to the religious beliefs. He listened to their hearts and their stories about their family. And when he became 30, he started his mission. And he put all of that together to incorporate everyone as God the Father intended. We are all God's children. Doesn't matter your religious belief. Doesn't matter your social standing. It doesn't matter your economical income, because we're all God's children. God made us differently. That's why I go back to women. Stop putting on the makeup, people. Stop spending billions of dollars putting on makeup to impress somebody that is not trying to impress you. We are all God's children. And we should accept each other for who and what we are, what we look like. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, green, yellow, purple, or blue. You know, they're sitting there saying it's a woman's right to abortion. But do you know that under the Supreme Court, zero precedents. That means they did not go back to look at the Constitution to see if abortion was constitutional or not. And I say this right from the opening of the preamble. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, Christians acknowledge the fact that the Constitution was written with the Bible in mind and with the Creator, God the Father, in mind. But you can look at it another way if you don't want to be a godly person. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. How are they created? One egg, one sperm from a male and a female. And that's how a baby's born. We know that. We are endowed by our Creator, our mother and father, to life. Right there throws the abortion out the window. Okay? Right there. We're entitled to life. May not have been the right way, but we're entitled to life. We're entitled to liberty. Freedom. Freedom to be who it is we want to be. And the pursuit of happiness. And to follow through on that belief of who we want to be. And that throws a big wrench into the Christian belief about homosexuality. God gave us the freedom to be who we want to be. Christians cannot sit there and point fingers at homosexuals and sit there and say that they're all sorts of negative words. I can't even think of one right now. Because they're God's children as well. They were created that way. And therefore, as Jesus said, love the sinner, not the sin. Maybe if we stop pointing fingers, maybe if we stop yelling and screaming at one another about what is wrong with the other side and started to embrace one another as God intended, to love each other as He loves us unconditionally, maybe once we started to do that, we could open the borders. We could allow people to come in and open our arms to them to give them a better way of life. Or maybe open our arms to them. Once we open the borders, we could move into Mexico and we could create better living environments and better homes and better jobs for the Mexican people. But when you have corrupt social governments suppressing the people, it can't be done. You've got to get rid of socialism in this country and in the world, people. Look at Argentina, what the problems are with Argentina because of socialism. It's time we made changes. But those changes have to be more towards a democratic republic and a capitalist system than towards a socialist system. And that's what the Democrats want to do. The Democrats have been suppressing you for years. Under the Obama administration, they really suppressed you. And they had liars out there that were sitting there doing illegal things in the government, the FBI, the justice system, to support the Democratic Party and to persecute those who were not Democrat. Times have changed. We need to open our eyes and understand the truth. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. That means Hillary Clinton needs to be brought to justice. That means Rosie O'Donnell needs to lose her Twitter account. They're not privileged. If you believe in privilege, they think they're privileged, and they're the ones that are promoting privilege so that you attack the white men in this country, but they're the privileged ones. They're the ones doing whatever they want to do, and nobody's saying anything against them. And it's time to put everything in perspective. Shut down the haters. That's what I say. Shut them down. Protest marches, shut them down. Don't even give them a license to protest. And if they're out there, police departments have free will to whip on them anytime they want to. If they're out there in a protest march, even if it's a peaceful one, if they have been not given the authority to protest, then they need to be shut down. We need to put things back in order. Spoiled children do not run this country anymore. Hard-working American citizens are getting their voice back and saying thank you for not listening to the spoiled little boys and girls in the Democratic Party and in this country saying, I want, I want, I want, I want. Now, God doesn't want us to do that. He wants us to love one another, but as long as there is hatred out there, hatred from the political party of the Democrats that are out there, that are stirring up all of the hatred in this country, then we need to fight back first. Once we take control of the hate, once we eliminate those that are promoting the hatred, the lies, and the deceit, then, only then, can we start working towards a peaceful nation. And an understanding that we are here for each other, not for a Democratic Party or a political party. But we're here for each man, woman, and child in America to make our lives better so that when we are in a better situation, we can turn around and help others make theirs. It's the same thing with Christianity. Don't try to change somebody else if you truly aren't a Christian. You have to understand what Christianity is all about. You have to sacrifice a lot for Christianity. Are you willing to do that? If you're not, don't go out there knocking on doors saying, do you believe in Jesus Christ? Because you don't even believe in him yourself. So understand that's the way it works. Change yourself. Make yourself a better person in 2018. Make yourself the best that you can possibly be. And then once you get to that goal, then turn to your family members. Make them believe what you believe in being the best. And then from there, go out to your neighbors and your community. And when we spread the idea that we can be better than what we are today, when we can show the unconditional love of God the Father to ourselves, to our families, to our neighbors, to our communities, then we can start making real change in this country to better not only America, but to better the world. Remember in the speech when President Trump was talking to other nations, he said, I'm making America great again. You should do the same thing to your countries. Make them better. Make them great. We had some very powerful countries. England, under the English rule. Not with all of these Muslims over there saying, I'm not listening to you. England was a great nation. Germany was a great nation. France, Italy. Well, Italy not so much, but they were good. Russia, under communism, destroyed the Russian country and the Russian people. Only America, and I say it again, Germany, England, France, China, Japan, Spain, Italy, all of those countries that are over there in Europe and in Asia, we're here thousands of years before America. Thousands of years running dictatorships and socialist governments. And along comes this little country, America. Started with 13 colonies and the youngest nation in the world. And we became the powerhouse. We became the most powerful nation in the world, financially, as well as militarily, as well as socially. The only country that I say betters us, I would say, is Japan. Japan still maintains one religious belief for the most part. And they work for their own people. Some of the laws about getting in and out of Japan and China are outrageous. I've got 2 nephews that have traveled back and forth between China and Japan for their education in doing graphic art design. And I listened to some of the stories of how you have to have an exit strategy before you can even get into that country. And if you miss your date, they will come and get you and put you on the plane and send you out. Well, yeah, there are not that many places you can go to in those countries. Not like America. So understand, we can have a one world government. We can have a better world for everyone if we're willing to turn away from socialism, communism, totalitarianism, fascism, and embrace the Democratic Republic. For all of you protesters out there that are listening to this, it's the Democratic Republic that gives you the right to protest. It's the Democratic Republic that sits back and lets you do what it is you do, while collecting welfare makes it an insult to the Democratic Republic. Because we take care of you. And you're arguing against the government that's taking care of you, that's giving you welfare checks. Sad news, people, it really is. But hey, that's the way life is. I thank you for listening. God bless. This has been a heck of a good year. Not that I have benefited anything. I'm retired. I got my 2%, I think it is, increase in my Social Security. And out of that, let me tell you something about that. It was a 2% increase. I saw $4 in my Social Security check. $4. The rest of it went towards Medicare. That's right. It went towards the government health care program. $23 and some odd cents went towards Medicare. I got a $4 pay raise in my Social Security check. So when you people are complaining about not getting any pay raises, think about that. When you start getting pay raises and prices start going up, us guys on welfare, on Social Security, we're limited. And if most of the people haven't set up any sort of financial plan or have done anything to better their lives in the retirement, they're going to suffer because prices are going to go up again and they're not going to have the money to buy it. That's why they've said it since the 1970s. Most people on Social Security and welfare, when they get up there in age, live off of dog food and cat food because they can't afford real food. And they can't afford real food because married couples and singles that are out there wanting to party and have a life and they don't want to have health insurance are asking for pay raises. And as everybody gets pay raises, what happens? The senior citizens of this country suffer. The elderly suffer because their checks are not going up. And they shouldn't really. I mean, you put money into your retirement fund, and that money should come back to you over the course of your years. So anyway, thank you, 2017. It's been a most impressive year. That's when I started amvoice.net. I preached in a church as well. I'd love to buy the church. It'll cost me $70,000, but I don't have the money. I don't. I can buy a church for $70,000 and start a whole bunch of different programs out of that church, but I need funding to do it. And that funding comes from the good, gracious people of America. And if some people around the world are listening to this, hey, maybe you should give as well. We've helped France, Italy, Germany. We've helped Spain. We've helped Russia. We've helped countries all over the world. And yet we never ask for anything for ourselves. And that's the American way of life. I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for the world. I can build a church for $70,000. I can hire people. Give me $150,000, $200,000. I'll hire people for that church. I'll start a program that'll knock the socks off of this world that nobody's ever seen before. That'll help the world as a whole, because the foundation of the church will be to share the unconditional love of the Father with everybody we come in contact. God bless. Take care. If you haven't heard this on amvoice.net, then please go to my website. There's a donation button. Give generously. I know the season's over with. So generously, give me $10, $20. If I had $20 from every American citizen in this country, that would be $660 million less banking fees. Around the world, trillions, people. And we could do a lot with that. So God bless. Take care. I pray I will keep you all in my prayers throughout 2018 to ensure that everybody is successful and lives a happy, easy, comfortable life. God bless.